Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of The Table presented by the CICL. I am here today with Cole Hartley and Peyton Mojica. As always, I'm David Dietrich, and welcome back. This is our Minutemen preview show. I look forward to doing a episode with each team where we bring two guys on, get a little bit of preview, what their season's going to look like and stuff like that. We're starting with you guys today. Cole, this is your second season with the Minutemen, and Peyton, this will be your first.
Yeah, it is.
Are you looking forward to playing with the Minutemen this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit better than, I played in the first season, and it was just a little bit, it was unorganized a little bit, always trying to get people there, and I feel like with the Minutemen, there's a lot more people that are dedicated to show up and, do a job. So
It's huge with any team, regardless of how long they've been around, to have that core group of guys that they can kind of rely on to be there, and that's something I think the Minutemen have. And it's nice when you can show up each week and just know I don't have to worry about 7-6 guys showing up, stuff like that. You have a good core group that's going to be there, that's going to get their friends to be there and stuff like that. So I don't think that's ever been a problem with the team. Now, this is your first year without Joe Rush being on the team. He stepped back to just kind of, it's our first time having two fields every weekend as a league and stuff like this. So he stepped back to kind of focus more on that. But he is still helping manage the team, from my understanding. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to be in the dugout with us.
Good. So he will. He'll still be there, but obviously you have to replace him on the field. What's that going to be like this year?
I don't know. I don't know if we know where it's going to come from. I think the addition of Peyton over here is going to be a big part of that. Peyton's a pitcher for us, but he can also play the field too, so he'll kind of fill that two-way role that Joe filled the last few years for us. So I think that'll be a big part of filling that hole that Joe's leaving for us.
Now, with the Minutemen, you guys have always been good. From season 1 to last season, you guys have put up a fight every year, but you guys have always fallen just short of winning a championship. What do you guys have to do to kind of get over that hump and complete a season?
I'm not sure. I've only played one season with the Minutemen, and it's the first season they haven't been in the championship.
Right.
So I can say from playing against them the first 2 years of the league, they've always been able to hit. Always been able to hit really well. They've always had some clutch pitching. Guys show up. But I feel like, not necessarily last year, but in the years prior, we always lacked on defense. And I think last year we maybe the pitching wasn't always there, or if the pitching was there, the hitting was there. I think this is the year that we're finally going to put all three together.
Sure.
And I think we're going to have a really great season this year.
That's one thing I do have to give credit to Joe on, because Joe kind of gets the first look, just because of his position. He gets the first look of anybody wanting to be in the league. And it's got to be, we've kind of seen it this offseason, where it's got to be easy to take these guys that offer that they want to play, that are really good, and just want to hold them on to all of them for your team. But he does a good job of not just making the Minutemen the most powerhouse roster every year and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, the other teams go out and they find their own guys and stuff like that. But there's got to be talented guys that sign up that don't have a team that he doesn't just take for himself and things like that. You guys do a good job of putting together a well-rounded team without just being, a D1 team playing a bunch of D3 level teams.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Definitely know what you mean. I think the biggest part of that is the league is Joe's baby. He puts the league before anything else. So I think he realizes for the league to thrive that the talent needs to be distributed. So
Definitely.
Rather than keeping that talent for himself and the Minutemen, he wants to distribute that. Plus, Joe's a pretty good baseball mind. He knows how to put a team together, and it's shown over the last few years that regardless, we're always right in there. It's
nice too to see. Speaking of some of that talent, it seems like there's a lot of good talent coming in. But it is pretty well distributed, and it's making it to where this is still the league to go to for those guys that maybe haven't played in a long time, or just never were really that great at baseball. I mean, you look at some of these pitchers that are coming in. I'm hearing about this kid. His last name's Dune.
Dunn. I don't think he's playing anymore, but definitely.
But guys like that rolling in.
There's definitely. I will say. I mean, I played in the league since it was started. In 2017, and this is by far going to be the most talented year, I think, as far as the player pool. goes, we're gonna have the most talent on the field this year. It's come a long way since the first year.
Well, and even like you take a kid like yourself, Peyton, where you've always been a good ball player, but you were even just talking to us before the show about how you feel like this is the best you felt coming into a season and stuff like that. So it's nice to see guys like that progress and just get better as the league gets better.
Yeah, like I feel like I haven't played ball since probably like April last year, RMU. Just being gone so long, I really wanted to get back in it, and I might not be able to always play college ball, but to be able to go out there and have fun and progress and get better is what I'm looking for.
Definitely. You spoke a little bit earlier about your first year playing and being on an unorganized team. What were some of the things like you had to deal with, and what got you through that season dealing with that?
Okay, so I played for the Barons the first year, and that was in, what was it, 2016?
17.
17.
Well, yeah. I think the Barons was 18. I think that was year 2 you're thinking of. It was your first year in the league, but it was year 2 of the league's history.
Because last year was
2017 was the first year.
Because last year was the third year.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So that was really bad. Like, I mean, I've hoped it's improved. I wasn't there last year. I was gone, and it was always like a challenge to get people there. Like I'd be in the dugout. We'd be having like 7 people, and I'd be calling people to see if they want to come play. That's what it was. And then also just with battling to try and get people to umpire or like getting umpires there. Like I remember I had an umpire one time, and I just don't like doing that because it's just so much pressure on you, and you make a bad call, people are going to get mad at you. That's just how it is.
That's what's nice with, we even saw that, we can kind of attest to this from last year where we still had a couple teams that would struggle to get the guys there and stuff like that. And we kind of went through more of a rigorous interview process, I guess, for the new managers and stuff like that. We have some new managers that we're really excited about this year. And I think we have even more teams now that are consistently having guys at every game that you don't have to worry about them missing, and they set a good example for the other teams. I mean, we were talking about the roster size is 16, and we are actually right now just rolling with 14 guys just for the fact, and we're doing it on purpose, just for the fact of we almost always have everybody show up. I mean, we wanted to go with 16 because typically you end up with 11 or 12. If we go with 14, we're going to have 13 or 14 there every week, and so it's like...
You're talking about the Bulldogs, right?
Yes, correct. And so that's why, I think when you see teams that are doing that, it makes it to where you don't have to overload those rosters. You can distribute the talent, and it's just good for the league overall. So,
definitely.
Not to mention you don't have to waste your week if you come out and the other team's going to have guys there as well. So,
you never want to come out and play against 7 guys. That's no fun.
Yeah, it's not fun at all. It just kind of a beat down on the other team sometimes. I mean, sometimes other teams can deal with it.
Right.
But it just gets very irritating because you want it to be competitive.
So, I got to ask, and I mean, I guess you guys can be as upfront as you want, but we are in the same division. Yep. We won the division last year, and we took home the championship last year.
Rub it in a little bit more.
How do you feel? I almost brought it with me. I meant to. How do you guys feel about competing with the Bulldogs? How do you feel you match up? And take out the fact that I'm the manager and stuff like that. I mean, I really just want to ask this from kind of an outside perspective, is how you feel like you match up against the team that was at the top of the division last year.
Ooh. That's tough. I mean, I guess we won't really know for sure until we get out on the field. I mean, I still haven't seen our entire team together yet this year, but I think that the key for us this year against you guys is going to be matching up against your pitching. Last year, you guys were lights out, even with Gage going out for most of the season last year.
Shea Barbie stepped up pretty big.
My gosh, you threw the ball really well last year, and I know you were talking earlier about with Peyton about guys that have improved as the league's gone. You guys are a testament to that.
Well, that's what we kind of talked about this before. Is it's really cool to see some of our better guys get better. And of course, like we talked about, Peyton, you've always been a good ball player and stuff like this. But we have some guys on our team, and make no mistake, I'm including myself in this, that haven't played since like 8th grade year, that could barely hit a ball when they started. And I mean, when you have fun together, when you play together, and there's not as much pressure and stuff like this, you get to see those guys play at their best, and that's what the league's all about. And that's truthfully, it's that every team has those top 3 or 4 guys that are going to be do so well, but there's a reason every kid bats in this league, and there's a reason every kid ends up playing the field in this league. If your bottom guys aren't playing at their best, that truly is what's going to make the difference in most games.
Oh, definitely. And to me, it's crazy how much you guys improved from your first year, and even from your first game in the league to the end of that first year was crazy. Because I remember, when you guys first came to the league, I was actually managing the Huskies at the time. And I remember when we would play you guys, like, I was throwing, like, our guys that wanted to get innings against you guys. Like, I was not trying to waste any arms against you guys because I was like, that's a W.
Yep.
And then by the end of the year, it's like, ooh, okay, these guys are starting to hit with us a little bit.
I'll tell you, and this is probably, and of course I'm a little bias on this, but easily my favorite game so far that we've had at least was we were down 9-0 in our first season, and we came all the way back and won it on a walk-off in the 7th.
I was there.
And so, and Shea Barbie hit it with 2 strikes, 2 balls, 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. I think I was the first run that tied it, and Chris Sonny was the game-winning run. And, I mean, truthfully, like, from there on out, anytime we get down in a game, which was a lot, we would just say, we've been here before. We know it. Like, what I mean? We're good for 7-run comeback every time. And then it was just kind of like you weren't afraid anymore. You weren't afraid to get out there and be down by a few runs and still play your best baseball.
I can't remember exactly when in the season that happened, but do you feel like that may have been a turning point for your team that season?
It wasn't only a turning point for our team that season, but it changed our confidence as a team going into the next season and so on. I mean, truthfully, so a lot of people don't know this, but the year before we started in the CICL, we played a season in the KVL, and we didn't have some of our top guys that we have now. So our team wasn't nearly as good as what they were even going into our first year of the CICL. But we weren't good in the KVL at all. It was mostly guys that had never played baseball before. And then we came into the CICL, and we kind of had that same attitude of we're not good, but we're just here to have fun. And we played the first, I think, 5 or 6 weeks and just got beat up on. There was a lot of errors, but nobody took it too serious. Nobody took it to heart. Most of these guys hadn't played before, so it wasn't a big deal. And then we came back and won that game, and I think everybody honestly kind of realized, like, okay, like we might have something here. And then we went to the second round of the playoffs that year. We truly just ran out of pitching and lost in extra innings by walking a guy in because we ran out of pitching, and then came back in year 3 and won the championship last year. So I think it absolutely was a huge turning point. And I almost think this is kind of something I want to get into with the Minutemen, is it seems like you guys have a very solid roster every single year. All your guys know how to play the game of baseball. No matter, you know what I mean. But it's almost like you guys need that just like what's going to push you over the edge. What's going to really make you guys believe that you can get it done this year. So I look forward to hopefully seeing that this year. Hopefully it's just not against the Bulldogs.
I think you already did see it, when Joe announced that he wasn't going to be playing this year.
I got everybody real fired up.
Yeah, no, I'm just messing around. We're gonna miss Joe. Honestly, I don't know what the turning point is going to be. I think. I honestly don't know. I can't tell you where it's going to happen.
And it's just, I mean, I think it's something that just happens. I mean, you got, you guys can have all the belief in the world that you have a good team, but when you get out there and you're down in a game, or you get a big walk off or something like that, just, I mean, truthfully, after that, we went into every game feeling like we could win it, whereas before we went into every game feeling like we were just going to lose, but it depended by how much.
I think what helps, what I feel more confident about is like having the players on the team that like have. Like for instance, Rabes or Alex Satunas, they've played college ball. They played some really good competitive teams, and they're able to adjust to people obviously throwing slower compared to like them facing upper 90s, stuff like that. Yeah. So they know to play ball. They know the ins and outs and everything.
That's huge. I mean, that's something that I obviously. I'll tell you this right up front. I manage the Bulldogs, but there are definitely guys on the team with more baseball knowledge than me. And a lot of times I'll lean on those guys, but at the same time, just because we have a pretty good hierarchy on our team, we have a pretty good understanding of each other and just morale on our team overall, that one thing, like I got to give all the credit in the world to Brian Bart, who's on our team, who probably has more baseball knowledge than almost anybody because he looks like he's 110 years old. But he truly knows the ins and outs of the game. But He also,
I will say he doesn't know the strike zone very well. He's on a couple of games I've thrown, and
but he also he understands the dynamic of the team and what we need to make it work. We had a game last year where he was in the last 2 innings and he was trying to close out the game, and the lineup had just seen him a couple times, and they got, I think, 1 or 2 guys on, and they weren't even that clean of hits, but they were just kind of starting to find him a little bit, and I pulled him, and I put Seth in to try to close the game out, and, I mean, it put Seth in a crap spot right from the beginning. I mean, it was a tough spot to go in there. And Bart was mad because he thought he was still throwing good and that he could have finished it out. And Seth, I think, got the first guy out, and then the second guy just got a hit that went between second base and short, and it ended up winning them the game. And, of course, Bart didn't want to come out in the beginning, so he was super frustrated that I pulled him. But he came up to me, and I told him, I was like, hey, look, I was just making a call. It seemed like and he stopped me, and he's like, look, of course I'm mad as a competitor because I didn't want to come out. But you're the manager, and I got to stand behind that, because if I would have stayed in, maybe I would have gave up the win. Yeah. He goes, I don't know. You're the manager. I got to stay behind that. So when you can when you have guys that know baseball like that, and then you also can lean on each other and say, look, let's make this call and roll with it, it can make a big difference. I mean, you got to have a guy like that on the team.
No, that's definitely true. And that's something when I managed the Huskies that I struggled with, because I threw quite a bit for the Huskies, so I'm a huge competitor too, and there was no chance I was pulling myself at any game that was close. So I can feel where he's coming from there.
That was something I actually did different last year, and it's hard to do, especially when you're pulling guys that are better at baseball than you and know a little bit more than you. But I think 2 years ago, this is a good, something to listen to for maybe a guy like Chris Nugster, who is his first time running a team, and he doesn't pitch necessarily. It's something that I learned was the first year I didn't want to pull anybody until they were ready to be pulled, and things would just go to crap. And, you'd have a guy go in and throw 4 or 5 innings. He was doing great, and then things would go awful. And I'd wait till he gave up 2 or 3 runs, then pull him, because that's when he wanted to be pulled. This year, there was a lot of times where we'd get to the 4th inning, and Shea would be filling in for Gage, and Shea would pitch 4 good innings. He'd give up 2 hits and maybe 1 run, and I'd pull him and get our next guy in there. And they didn't want to hear that. And you go, no, look, we're going to stick to this schedule. We're going to get you out while things are good. And that's having your team trust you to be able to do that, and then you be able to trust your team to put in the right guys at the right spot. It's a huge part of baseball.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's. It's going to be big for your guys' success too, because that's uncommon to see, and Rex, not just rec baseball, but rec sports guys that even they may not be happy with it, but they're still cool with you about making those decisions, because most guys, when they play rec league, they're, especially when they're competitors like that, they're willing to stay out.
It's all about having that team first mentality, and that's I think that's what separates. Truthfully, I think we talk about what it takes to be able to win in this league and win a championship, specifically this league. And I tell people the first thing is the personalities, the camaraderie, the overall team morale, stuff like that, because that's when it gets you guys to play the best. And then the next thing is the defense. How many errors are you going to commit? It was so awesome. Joe and I talked about this to an extent about last year, how you would see regular season games that were 10-5, 10-4, 9-6, and then all of a sudden we hit the playoffs and it was 2-3, 2-1, 3-0. Like, it was defensive playoff, high intensity games.
Everybody was bringing their A game.
It was literally like everybody knows I'm a huge hockey guy, and it was like playoff hockey out there. It was like everybody kicked it up to that next level. There's more intensity, and people were playing at their best. And that's what I'm so excited about this year is the teams we have. The Minutemen look like they're going to be very good. The Bulldogs are bringing almost the same team back plus a couple of key additions. The Bandits are looking to retool, and they're always a very good defensive team, especially. The Warhawks were right there last year. And then you have these new teams coming in that are bringing in a whole crop of guys that we didn't even know about. So it's like, when it comes to the playoffs, I'm ready to get through all these episodes and learn about all these teams, and then we can start doing, preseason rankings and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, this season's going to come down to 3 or 4 pitches, and it could be 4 or 5 different teams in this league that could win it, and we don't even know who they are yet. So it should be a pretty exciting season from top to bottom.
Oh no, I'm pumped about this season. I think it's going to be the best year of ball for the CICL yet.
Definitely. It's exciting. We do have multiple fields. We actually got some pretty exciting news today. So we're we're already back in contact with the Pekin field that we used last year, getting the schedule set up with them as to when we can use them. We're using East Side more this year, but then we're also getting, is it Peoria Notre Dame?
Yep, Peoria Notre Dame.
Field. That's
Yep.
nice
So we're getting that, and then possibly Woodruff as well. So
Yep.
the key is that last year we had some fields bail on us last minute. We had to put everything together. This year it looks like we're going to have some options. We should be able to accommodate teams a little bit better, and just again, top to bottom, things are just looking up this year from the talent, from the camaraderie. Another thing that can really attest to this, we just had our CICL league practice, our first one at the Yard in Peoria, and Joe was messaging us about potentially having 30 people come out. And the whole time, Britt and I were both kind of like, it'll be like 10 to 15.
Yeah.
I don't really know about all this. We had over 30 guys there.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was fantastic.
I was there for the first half of it. It was a ton of fun.
Literally all I did was I took a few reps at first base. I took a few hits off the tee, and then I literally went over and I just walked around and talked to people the whole day. We have a new player that was there, so I really paid attention and watched what he could do. He looks pretty good. And then I just talked to guys. I asked them if they watched the episode. Everybody had, so it's cool to be able to do this. And just truthfully, I mean, when we do this, when we do the league practice, everything we're doing is just another way to get everybody to get to know each other and have fun and have friends and stuff like this. I mean, we all have lives outside of baseball, and this is just such a good way to connect. And I can't tell you how many friends I've already made through the league, and so that's what all this is for. It's not, I'm not on here doing this show to bolster up your guys' team or to talk about how good my team is. I constantly talk about how bad I am at baseball. So it's truthfully just so we can all get to know each other better and stuff like this. And I look forward to having the other teams on as well. And so that's what I'm pretty excited about. So we're gonna do some quick predictions here.
All right, let's get it.
And it's gonna get a little testy here. We'll see. Give me your CICL MVP for this year, you think?
Darren Raby.
Maybe Ryan Slusher.
Okay. So Raby is a big headliner because he had MVP numbers last year. There's no question about it. But he just couldn't make as many games. And so we even talked about this because we're both on the board. We talked about we just didn't believe that you can give an MVP to a guy who's just not there that often, because if you're going to be a valuable player to your team, it's because you're there week in and week out.
Yeah, I think the thing that kind of, at least in my opinion, I didn't have a vote in the MVP last year, but for me what it came down to is, I mean, in my opinion, by far had the best numbers in the league last year. He didn't make it to as many games.
Right.
And the guy that I thought should have won MVP didn't even win MVP. I thought it should have been Seth.
Sure, Seth Ite from the Bulldogs.
Yep, Seth Ite. And then for me, the reason I picked him was because his numbers were right behind Raby's, and he was there all year. So I think, without a doubt, if Rabes can make it to enough games this year, he's gonna run away with it, without a doubt.
And I could definitely see it. I mean, again, we talked about how, he wasn't as many games last year, but nobody's knocking his ability and how good he is on the field. It's absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing him on the mound a little bit more this year as well. I know he wants to get out there and pitch a little bit more, even if it is a rotation or whatever.
He might be the biggest competitor in the league. He takes it dead serious.
Good.
He everything. He even complains about catching a little bit, but he wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, and you talk to the kid too outside, and he's the nicest kid. I mean, he just loves coming out and playing.
Totally different dude off the field than he is on the field. On the field, you probably hate his guts, but he's
a lot of fun.
Sorry, Raves, but you're a teddy bear off the field.
For mine, it's tough because this is what's hard about what we do is we don't have the coverage that I wish we could have, that obviously paid leagues and stuff like that get, because my vote last year for MVP was Shea Barbie from my team, and his hitting stats were almost identical to Seth's. I mean, Seth had a little bit more of the power hitting numbers, where Shea had a little bit more of the on base numbers. He was like second or third in the league for RBIs, I believe. But this is something, and Britt told me, he goes, the reason I didn't vote for Shea was because I wasn't at your games. I couldn't see what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it totally makes sense, because his numbers at the plate, he's in the mix of the top 2, top 3 for everything. And I get why that, you know, puts him in the conversation. But what he did is we had our top pitcher, Gage, miss like 6 or 7 games last year. Shea filled in all those games, and I think he maybe lost one. And so to be able to do all that, he catches every game, and then as soon as he's done catching, he comes out and pitches. He'll usually pitch the whole first game, and then we'll bring in a closer, and then our second starter would start the second game, and then because we play our games on the same day, and then Shea would still relieve that game. So it's like he's either catching, he's relieving, or he's starting pitcher for our other starter that's out and faced some of the tougher teams and didn't take any losses, and as bad as at the top of the league. So if the coverage was on everything, not only do I think Shea Barbie would get like the attention he probably deserves for every little thing that he does, but there's probably a lot of guys like that. I mean, there's a lot of guys on the teams that weren't as successful that do a lot for their teams that goes very under the radar. A big one for me is Dan Barbie. He's one of my favorite people in the league, and it's literally because like that guy just puts his head down, does whatever his team needs, and he is a vital part of whatever team he's going to be on.
Oh yeah, he's got some sneaky good numbers since the league. Since I think he played the first year too, so I think I know I've seen some of the posts of the all-time home runs, hits, and he's right up there. I was like, oh man, I was not expecting that.
And he grinds. He doesn't look for a bunch of attention. He doesn't talk a lot or anything like that. But you can, I mean, if you need something out of a guy, he's there to provide it.
Yeah, he's a huge player.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think the best pitcher in the league is going to be this year?
Well, I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't say myself.
Peyton, who do you pick? Let's move on.
Let's see. Who do we have pitching this year that's a powerhouse, you think?
So, Shoop's back. Shoop won MVP because of his pitching last year.
He had a really good year.
Shoop's really good. He's going to be at the top. Obviously, the new guys we just don't know as well. That's why that's hard to do. I know we have Steven Lawson coming in for us, and he's going to pitch. And we really haven't seen him throw that much, but he could be very good. And then the big one for us is we have Gage Wallman coming back, who to me was we picked him as the playoff MVP, the championship MVP, because he just absolutely shut it down for the playoffs for us.
And actually, now that you said, I mean, I was, of course, being halfway serious about myself, but to pick somebody else, Gage is definitely one of the best pitchers in the league. Period.
He's very consistent.
Oh, and his slider is almost unhittable. It's probably one of the single best pitches I've seen in the league since
it's definitely the one I've heard the most about, because being the manager, and obviously I never face him, I can't tell you how many times we will get done playing a team and I'll be kind of talking. I like to talk to as many guys in the league as I can just to get to know them better and sell them cars, but I'll be talking to other guys in the league, and every time we pitch them afterwards, somebody's like, dude, his slider you can't touch. Like, he goes, where's it going? You know, he's
you
like,
almost
it's
have
ridiculous.
To guess.
Yeah.
And I'm not by any means a very good hitter. I was a PO in college and in high school for that matter. Didn't even hit in high school. But I've gotten a few at-bats against him, and I'm always looking back at the catcher like, why are you still calling me? Like, I'm not going to hit his fastball anyway. Stop throwing me that slider. It's coming at my face.
Peyton, who do you have?
Who was that one pitcher the first year? I don't know if you were there, but he'd always have like a corner of the cob right in
That's
the back.
Gage.
That's
that was Gage.
Yeah, Gage.
He was I know he didn't play like I don't think he played like high school ball or anything like that.
He played at Pekin. I don't know if he played all 4 years or what. I don't know.
But
he went to Pekin.
He was one of those players that like he was just trying to like get the rust off him, and he just didn't expect so much out of him.
Yeah, so funny story about Gage. I played with him growing up when we were super young. Like, when I played in like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, his dad was our coach, and like we played together when I was really young. And he was always like the first kid picked whenever they would split them all up, and like he would just hit home runs all the time, and he just threw so hard all the time. And one time we were playing, the last year that I played, so it would have been like 6th or my 7th grade year or something, I was playing first base, and Gage should have picked the kid off, and the kid jumped back onto first, and he hit my glove out of the way because he didn't like really know what he was doing, and I took his ball right to my nose, and cracked my nose. I mean, there's blood everywhere. It just smashed my nose. And we obviously, like, we were friends like through high school, but like we didn't hang out a ton. But it was like every time like we'd see each other, he'd be like, dude, that day I felt so bad. He goes, I felt so horrible. He's such a nice kid. And so then, like, it was so funny whenever I hit him up to play baseball again. He was like, dude, are you playing first? He's like, I don't want to crack your nose again.
Is he kind of a quiet kid?
He is the quietly the funniest kid you'll ever meet. Like, he is a goofball.
Because, like, on the field, I don't know him, like, real well personally, but, like, on the field, he always seems so intense. But
he is an absolute, like, he's the guy that's, like, not afraid to look super, super weird just to make people laugh. And you don't know if he's serious or not. Like, he'll act totally serious about it. The whole corner on the cob thing, it was our first year in the league. We played doubleheader, so it was between games, and we were at the Peoria field, and there was, like, a little, like, massage parlor right up there, and this Asian lady was eating food up there, and he went up to her, and he was, like, acting dead serious, and he was like, hey, you going to finish that corn? And she's like, no, you can have it, and she gave it to him, and he ate it, and then, like, we were starting next game, so he threw it in his back pocket of his baseball pants and pitched with it. Like, he'll do it just to be he's hilarious. He's such
in little pitches, he'd just be biting him, like, oh my, he's fired up the ball.
Reminds me Joe Rush. Sorry, I don't mean to get off topic.
No, you're fine.
I want to say it was Oakland City. We were gone some weekend playing for RMU, and Joe would take. He was eating oranges in between games. He'd take the orange peel out with them and chew on it while I was warming up.
Yeah.
And then he made a mountain of orange peels behind the mound. And I can't remember if it was at the end of the game or like towards the end. The umpires finally saw it and came over and threw his orange peels off the.
Was this last year?
No, this wasn't last year. It was the year before.
Because I know you always ate oranges.
Yeah,
last
That's
year.
funny. That's funny. Yeah, and that's just the kind of stuff that you see. It's so fun to see, like, the different characters and stuff out there because you just don't know. And that's why I always encourage guys, if you're listening to this, if you come out to the yard, if you between games, whatever, obviously it can get pretty intense during the games, but talk to those guys out there, especially if you're new to the league. You will make a ton of friends. It's a really good time. It's a blast. Peyton, can you tell what time do we have? Where are we at on that? I can't see without my glasses. Just Peyton throwing stuff all over the place. Just bought this with my hard-earned money here. First time in the studio.
You check the time, we'll get this.
33 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So we can kind of start digging into. Watch so you don't pull with the cord there. We'll kind of get into our last subject here. This is something that I wanted to bring up that's a little bit different. Obviously, we talked about the Minutemen quite a bit. I wanted to hop onto another subject that anybody could relate to, especially if you've played in the league before. But we now have the Huskies who won the first championship, the Bandits who won the second championship, the Bulldogs who won it last year, the Bulldogs looking to repeat this year. Who do you think the best overall team in the CICL from year 1 to year 3 has been?
Ooh, that's tough. Do they have to have won a championship?
No.
All right, I'm gonna give a two-part answer. I think the best roster, and again, this is kind of me being biased, but I think the best roster constructed in CICL history was the 2018 Huskies. We should have ran away with the championship that year. We ran into Steven Mitz from the ads. That dude threw the game of his life.
Yeah.
He was amazing that game and just stunned us. We couldn't get the bats going. I can't remember how the Minutemen's offense was that year because they always can hit the ball. But I mean, we had Raves, we had a guy named Paxton Bag. We had 5 or 6 guys that played at RMU all in the lineup, and we could pitch, we could play defense. We were all over the place. So best roster constructed, period, I would say Huskies. But as far as championship team goes, and the toughest team that I've pitched against in the league was the 2018 Bandits.
Yeah.
I would say that team was just ice in their veins.
Yeah.
I pitched against them twice and had late leads each time, and they came back on me each time, and it was just they were a great team, and they ended up winning the championship that year.
Now, Peyton, you've only played the first and the second year. Who would you say the toughest team you played in either of those years was?
I'd probably say the Bandits, honestly. It seemed like every time I played them, they were such a dominant team. Every time, I remember just, looking at the stats and, what the record was.
Yeah.
They were always pretty up there compared to their losses, and they were a pretty tough team to go against.
All right, so I'm going to get biased, but I am going to give credit where it's due. So I do think it's between two teams to me. if you were going to take all these teams separately and have them play in a tournament, who's going to come out on top? I think it's got to be between the 18 Bandits and the Bulldogs from last year. And the reason I say it is because what the Bulldogs were good at to start out with that is that you have maybe 2 or 3 guys that don't consistently hit the ball well. But besides that, I mean, you're dealing with, you have Bart leading off, who is an over 400 hitter. You have Seth, Shea, who are both MVP candidates. You have Brad, who's a powerhouse. You have Tony, who can hit. You have Zach, who can hit. I think the only spot where maybe we lacked a little bit, where the Bandits were phenomenal top to bottom, is defensively they just didn't make mistakes. No. And we have some very good defensive players, but we always rotate all of our guys in, so there would be some gaps on defense at times. There's no doubt about it.
So your guy, that kind of paid off for you guys on your championship run.
Yeah.
Last year, didn't it? Because you had to put some guys in some unfamiliar positions.
We talk about we can move guys around a lot, but then also like all year long. And again, I have to give credit to Brian Bart on this, because even when we were in a 7-6 game in the 7th inning and we were sending our defense out there, instead of just saying like, hey, let's put our best guys out there to win this, he would say, no, let's get everybody the normal rotation, the normal stuff, because they need to be ready when the playoffs come. Like right now we're up 3 games in the division. This doesn't matter as much as a playoff game. We'd send kind of those other guys out there, which would be like me at first base, where Anthony's a better first baseman than I am. And it paid off immensely in the playoffs, because I'll tell you, the championship weekend, Justin Carpenter was at second base the entire time because Brady couldn't go. Justin played his best games that championship. I mean, he made play after play there at second, and it was because throughout the season we weren't just like, hey, you stay on the bench because we're going to put this guy out there. No, he not only did he earn his spot at second throughout the season because he got better and better and better, but he proved it at the end. And so, but best team top to bottom, the reason I guess I do like the Bulldogs for that is if you actually look at the batting stats last year, like hits, RBIs, overall batting average, we're not just at the top of the list, but it's a pretty decent gap. I mean, it's, if you look at the batting average, like RBIs, I think we had like 4 or 5 guys that are double-digit RBIs, and every other team had 1, except for one other team had 2. It was just, we're far and away better at the plate. And this, and again, I still give the credit. I think it's a toss-up between us and the Bandits from last year. And the only reason, one, I didn't know as much about the Huskies. Yeah. I didn't really know anybody in the league at the time. But then I guess what I can really say that's kind of from an outside, unbiased opinion about the Bulldogs is we talk consistently about how, and so the Bandits will always have a spot for the CICL history for the year they had in 18 because they were absolutely dominant from start to finish. But if the Bulldogs from last year were in that season, could they compete with them in that championship? And I think it would be a hell of a series to watch.
I would agree with that. I didn't mention it. I kind of wanted to give a straightforward answer, but the Bulldogs last year, that's definitely an all-time great roster for CICL history.
Well, when you have 3 years and you have 3 championships, every team's going to be in that conversation for sure.
Definitely. I think that for me, again, I only got to pitch against you guys once last year,
right?
And that didn't end too pretty for me. But
I was going to say, you had a no-hitter till
it was actually the first batter.
Was it?
The first batter. Until he got a hit, so it was whatever. There's always this year. So
yeah, I get it. Well, hey, that was fun, guys. We got to talk a lot about the Minutemen, but we did get to talk about some other things going on this year. Very, very excited to see you guys out on the field. I'm excited to have you guys back here at the table as well. I'm excited to have, more specifically, the other teams and 2 guys from each of their team come on here. I want to do a preview for every team like this. It'll probably get rowdy when we have all 3 Bulldogs in here, but we'll have fun with it. I'm really excited to get to know the new teams and all the new players that are going to be in the league. Thank you guys again for coming on. Once again, this has been The Table, brought to you by the CICL.